My daughter forgot to hang up the phone. I heard every word. It's time for him to go to a nursing home. He's a burden. With the market, we could get 900, maybe more. They laughed, and something in me broke, clean and permanent. 10 days later, they came home from a business trip and slid their keys into a lock that didn't turn. There was a white envelope taped at eye level. They read it. Then they screamed. Before we keep going, do me a small favor. Tap subscribe and tell me in the comments where you're listening from. And if you've ever had to set a boundary the hard way, drop one word that sums it up. You never know who you'll help. The phone had rung just as I scraped the last of Ellen's meatloaf into the trash. Her recipe, but mine never tasted right without her hands. The caller ID lit up, Caitlin, and Reflex did what Reflex always does. I smiled at her name like a man who hadn't learned yet. "Dad, how are you holding up?" she asked. That familiar warmth lived in her voice, the one that makes you forgive too much. "Just finished dinner," I said, easing into Ellen's recliner. The leather still kept the shape of her reading life. "Was about to watch the news." "You're eating enough, right? You can order groceries now, remember? I showed you the app." "I'm eating," I told her, as gently as a man trying not to tip a boat. "Had a little scare yesterday. Forgot to turn the burner off under the coffee pot. Smelled it from the living room." Silence on her end. I could see the crease between her eyebrows, the one she borrowed from her mother. "Dad, maybe we should get someone to check on you more regularly." "Jeremy thinks I'm fine," I said. "How's Phoenix?" She exhaled. "Conference ends tomorrow. Jeremy's doing the client stuff. I'm enduring emerging digital trends." She laughed, but it sounded practiced. "We have dinner with some potential investors." "Go get 'em," I said. "Love you. Love you too. Take care of yourself, okay?" Click. Then rustling. Her purse. The call didn't fully disconnect. I reached for end and stopped when I heard my daughter's voice, stripped of warmth. "Jeremy, you see how he's deteriorating? He forgot the stove. What if he burns the house down?" A cold line traced my spine. "It's time for a nursing home," Jeremy replied, cool, matter of fact. "He's becoming a burden." Caitlin's tone shifted. All calculation now. "The house is worth almost $1 million. With Denver's market, we could get 900, maybe more." "Exactly," Jeremy said. I could hear the smile. "We sell it, put him somewhere decent, not too expensive, and finally buy that Boulder place with the mountain view." My daughter laughed. Laughed? God, you should have heard him tonight. So grateful to hear from me. He has no idea. The longer we wait, the more confused he'll get. We should strike while he still trusts us completely. The phone slipped from my hand and clattered on the hardwood Ellen and I installed 23 years ago. Every board laid by my palms, every nail driven with a plan for our future. The house went quiet in that way that isn't empty. It's the quiet that comes when a truth walks in and sits down. I stared at Ellen's photo on the mantel, the one where she's backlit by our kitchen window and looks like she's about to say something worth hearing. I didn't know if her eyes held warning or wisdom or just that secret the dead get for free. In the hall, the grandfather clock she bought for our 15th anniversary ticked into the dark. Outside, spring crickets started up in the garden she planted. I still tended, because tending keeps a man from rusting. Something cold and exact settled in my chest, like a beam finally seated in its bracket. My hands, scarred from decades in construction, curled into fists and then unclenched with a decision. They thought I was a burden, confused, helpless, a chair with a wobble you fix by shoving a folded napkin under one leg. They were already spending my money, already living my life one zip code to the west. I wasn't dead, and I wasn't confused. I stood and turned on the lamp, laying warm light across a room we'd built piece by piece. The burgundy sofa where Caitlin did homework, the coffee table I made in the garage, sanding it smooth while she played at my feet. Evidence lived here, and it was on my side. I opened the drawer that held old papers. Ellen used to say, never throw away proof you might someday need. 20 years of records slid under my hand. University of Colorado tuition, $48,000 over 4 years. I could still feel concrete dust in my hair from those double shifts, Ellen rubbing my shoulders while I paid bills at this table. Don't give her so much she forgets to be grateful, she'd warned. I'd told her generosity makes the world turn. I wasn't wrong. I was naive. Wedding receipts.
$32,000 for one day. I told Caitlin we could do 5, maybe 8 if we stretched. She cried. I took weekend gigs installing hardwood for cash. At the reception, she laid her head on my shoulder and said, "Daddy, you're the best father in the world. I'll never forget this." Life, it turns out, is exceptional at amnesia. I found the bank statements from 2 years ago, when Jeremy lost his financial advisor job for reasons that always had "we can't get into it" attached. They moved in temporarily, which turned into a year. I never asked for rent. I paid the higher bills. I bought groceries for 3 adults instead of 1 widower. Jeremy patted my shoulder and told his friends I was the most generous man in Colorado. I wore the praise like a uniform and didn't look too closely at who it served. I climbed the stairs to the room that still smelled like Ellen. Her jewelry box on the dresser, her reading glasses folded next to the lamp. I pulled the original deed. Roy and Ellen Hayes, 1999. No liens, no co-signers. Now, just my name. Here in the room where she asked me to promise I wouldn't let anyone take advantage of me, "You're too good, Roy, too generous. Promise you'll take care of yourself." I felt the promise find a place to live. They wanted to warehouse me so they could liquidate us. Not on my watch. I took a worn business card from the desk. Todd Fisher, real estate attorney. We'd met him when Ellen got her diagnosis to put our affairs in order. Death makes planners of romantics. I dialed. The law office smelled like lemon oil and calendar pages. Todd was younger than I remembered. Maybe that's just the trick grief plays on time. He poured coffee and listened. I told him about the call I wasn't meant to hear. I said nursing home without flinching. I told him about $900,000 exchanged in a sentence like I was a line item. "Unfortunately," he said, "this is more common than you'd think." He laid out the law calmly. Your house is yours. They have no legal claim. They can't sell it. They can't force you into a facility. They can't touch your assets without your consent. The kind of relief that comes when someone says what you already know but needed to hear out loud. "So, if I wanted to sell it," he asked. "You could have it on the market tomorrow. There are cash buyers. Your neighborhood is hot." "How fast is fast?" I asked. "A week, maybe less." He studied my face. "You want to move before they get back?" I nodded. "I want to take the board out from under the whole rickety table they've built." "This is a major decision," he said. "No going back." "I built that house with my hands," I said, steady. "I know exactly what it is." We talked numbers, comps, cash buyers. He could move immediately if I was serious. His consult was $200. I paid cash and walked out into the bright Denver morning, grief's fog burning off in increments I could measure. On my kitchen counter, my phone buzzed. Caitlin. I let it ring and die. Let her wonder why the grateful old man wasn't scrambling. Let them talk about what's best for me. I had a plan now that didn't include their counsel. If you're still listening, smash that like and drop one word in the comments for the boundary you had to set too late. Also, tell me your city. Someday you might need a stranger's story to give you permission to be brave. I typed, "Best real estate agent Denver, quick cash close," like a man picking the right gauge wire. One name kept popping. Brian Connor. Quick sales, cash buyers, 18 days average, list to close. His testimonials read like magic tricks. Sold in 6 days. Cash offer in 2. Smooth closing. I called. "Brian Connor?" "Mr. Connor, name's Roy Hayes. I need to sell quickly." How quickly can quickly really be? With the right property, I've done 10-day cash closings. Tell me about your house. I gave him the specs. 2-story, 3,400 square feet, Cherry Creek area, built in 99, 3 beds, 2.5 baths. Maintained by a man who hates shortcuts. "I can be there at 3, he said, "if that works." I cleaned like Ellen was coming home. Lavender in the linen closet, counters shining like proof. It wasn't about company. It was about pride. Brian arrived exactly at 3, with a leather portfolio and eyes that saw. He stepped inside and stilled, the the way a pro does when he recognizes a job done right. "Wow," he said, looking up at the crown molding, down at the hardwood that has my niece's memory in it. "This is exactly what I was hoping for. Floors are 3/4 solid oak. Installed them myself in 2001. Ellen picked the stain. Said she wanted something that would outlast us." He ran his hand along the granite. "This kitchen. Custom everything. Ellen chose the stone. Said the gold veining looked like morning." He took photos, measurements, notes. He checked outlets and faucets, the little things that stop deals when they're wrong. They weren't wrong. "In 15 years, he said, I rarely see maintenance at this level. I'm an engineer. Build it right or build it twice." He showed comps, $850 to $920. "Given your condition and custom work, we price at $890, he said. "It'll move fast." He had a buyer already, a group that snaps up high-quality rentals. Cash, no appraisals, no repair negotiations, 10 business days. "When would I need to be out?" I asked. "Standard is 30 days after closing," he said. "We'll write that in." "Let's do it," I said. His professional mask slipped long enough to show excitement. He made the call. I listened to him describe my house with accuracy and appreciation. He hung up smiling. "They want it," he said. "Contracts tomorrow at 9. He left me in a room painted gold by an evening spilling through the bay window I built for Ellen. I stood there, feeling something I hadn't felt since the hospital beeped itself empty. Control. The next morning the notary slid papers in front of me like an orchestra of phrases I understood. Sale price, $890,000. Cash. Closing 10 business days. Seller retains occupancy for 30 days past closing. My name flowed across the lines. The notary stamp thunked like a door sealing against weather. Inspections came and went. "Your contractor knew what he was doing," one of the investors' guys said, admiring a junction box. "He did," I said, deadpan. He laughed. I found a furnished one-bedroom at Sunset Manor Apartments. Miss Chen ran the place with a kind efficiency I trusted. Month to month, cash deposit okay. She slid the key across the counter like a welcome that didn't pry. In an afternoon, I moved the essentials. Ellen's jewelry box, our wedding photo, the novel she was reading marked on page 247, the folder with our important papers, the tomato knife with the nick in the blade from the time I tried to cut frozen bread and she laughed so hard she hiccuped. I left the furniture. I left most of her clothes. I left the photo albums for now because you can't move everything all at once without breaking something you didn't intend to. I also called Colorado Community Bank and set an appointment with their private banker, David. I wanted a place that knows your name when you walk in, not just your account number. Then I did something practical and cruel, which were the same thing in this case. I went to Starbucks on Colfax, stirred sugar into coffee I didn't want, and called a locksmith. Eddie arrived with a van full of solutions and hands that had seen every kind of lock emergency. He swapped the brass hardware Ellen had picked for modern silver. These were quality, he said, turning my old locks like he was appraising jewelry. I installed them, I said. I like things done right. He handed me new keys. I handed him cash. No paper trail with my name on it. Then I taped a white envelope to the inside of the front door, with Caitlin and Jeremy's names in my neatest handwriting. I stood there a moment longer and listened to the house breathe like a thing relieved. I ordered a wireless mini camera disguised as a phone charger. Motion activated, crystal clear, streamed to my phone. It arrived the next day. I plugged it into the entryway outlet and angled it at the door. The app showed me the frame. The note was centered. The lock was in view. I tested motion detection. It caught me going in and out. Perfect. At the bank, David shook my hand and asked questions like a man who understands the responsibility of holding other people's lives in a vault. He set up the accounts, initiated the wire. Funds should clear by Wednesday, he said. I liked the way he made promises. Modest. Accurate. On Wednesday he called. All set. Some things work the way they're supposed to. It feels like a blessing when you're used to chaos. The day they came back from Phoenix, the app buzzed in my hand. Motion detected. Jeremy's black SUV pulled into a driveway that no longer belonged to us. Caitlin had out first, stretched, smiled, the smile of someone coming home to claim what she believes is hers. Jeremy unloaded suitcases like he was moving purchases from a cart to a trunk. Caitlin fished her keys from her purse, slid one into the lock. It didn't turn. She frowned, tried again. That's weird, she said. The audio came in clean. Jeremy went round back, came back with a face that didn't know which feeling to pick. Back doors locked, garage remotes dead. Call Dad, she said, composure showing cracks. She dialed my old landline. It rang into nowhere. He's not answering, she said. It's not going to voicemail. Try his cell, Jeremy said. He doesn't have one, she snapped, like the facts themselves were being spiteful. Jeremy scanned the windows. Kitchen's cracked, he said. Boost you? I watched my daughter climb through the window of a life she had already decided to sell. She opened the door from inside. They rolled in suitcases and stopped when they saw the envelope. She peeled it off the door. Her fingers shook. She read. He read over her shoulder. I watched their faces move. Confusion, shock, disbelief, horror, anger. He sold the house, she said, voice climbing. How could he do this to us? To us, Jeremy repeated, and the mask he plays when he plays devoted son-in-law slipped. $890,000. He kept it all, she cried, mascara traveling. That was supposed to be our future. Your future? He snapped. This is your father. You should have handled him better. My fault? She said, whirling with years of swallowed resentments. You said he was a burden. You pushed the home. He was a burden, he said and gestured around at a room they no longer owned.
Look where we are. Our lease ends next week. There it was, the part he hadn't mentioned. Unemployed for 6 months after questionable transactions. No offers, no savings, a house of cards balanced on my back. Call a lawyer, Caitlin said, breathy with desperation. He can't just, without telling us? There's legal recourse. With what money? Jeremy asked. And recourse to what? The deed says Roy Hayes. He sold his house. They sat heavily, her on the burgundy sofa where she did algebra, him on a chair I built during a blizzard that shut the city down. They looked up at the ceiling and down at my note and then at each other like strangers. That was enough for me. I closed the app and set the phone down. I opened a bottle of Bordeaux Ellen and I had saved for a special occasion. I poured a glass and lifted it toward her photo on my apartment's cheap mantel. To you, I said. Justice served. The wine tasted like a door closing correctly. Their texts came in waves, unknown numbers, block caps, Dad answer, and how could you, and we're worried, and you're abusing us, and please call. I turned the phone off. A Denver evening threw gold against the windows of my small place. Somewhere across the city, 2 people who had decided I was a burden were learning they had planned poorly. For the first time since the machines went quiet in our bedroom, I felt free. And because life doesn't stop being life when the revenge is tidy, there was aftermath. Caitlin called the police for a welfare check. Officer Morales left a voicemail. Mr. Hayes, your daughter asked us to check. Call if you want me to pass along a message. I called him back. I'm fine, I said. I'll see her for coffee at a public place. They emailed. They accused. They apologized. I saved a few. People rewrite history like they're the only ones with pens. Paper helps. I met a trust and estates attorney named Raphael to build walls that didn't need me to lean on them. We restated my revocable trust to route everything through the version of me that writes checks only on purpose. We removed Caitlin and Jeremy as beneficiaries. I named charities, buses and calculators for public schools, scholarships for stubborn late bloomers at mines, groceries that make dignity possible at the food bank. We updated beneficiaries and titles, revoked powers of attorney, recorded a video where I looked the camera in the lens and said, "Boundaries are instructions for how to love me correctly." You'd be surprised what a notary stamp can do for a man's posture. Boundaries don't argue, they announce. Like weather, I said. He smiled. Exactly. I agreed to one call with Caitlin. She cried. I listened. We were scared, she said. We panicked. You called me a burden, I said. You planned to sell my life while I was still living it. Please meet me, she said, not to talk about money. We met for coffee on Kearney. She took off her sunglasses and for 3 seconds looked like my little girl. Then she looked like a woman who'd learned the kind of math you don't put on a whiteboard. I was wrong, she said. We were wrong. I don't know why I thought. I said, you were trained to think your crisis was my responsibility. I trained you. That's on me. But the choice was yours. That's on you. Are you safe? She asked. I am. We drank quietly and laughed about Ellen standing in the garden in a hailstorm, holding an umbrella over her tomatoes like a general. We did not talk about money. Before she left, she said, I love you. I said, I love you. Then I added, but I'm not your plan. She nodded. It looked like it hurt. Some lessons are supposed to leave a mark. I built a small life that fit. Mornings at a coffee shop where Sarah remembered my order. Thursdays sealing 1-pound bags of rice at the food bank alongside a machinist named Charlie whose scoop and seal rhythm could time a song. Afternoons where I learned the names of the retirees at the park. Saturdays sometimes reserved for my grandkids at the museum, if the arrangement was civil, punctual, and not about money. Time I have. Money I don't. Not for this. There was a scare where the title company held the wire for routine verification, and my chest felt like it had forgotten how to breathe. David, the banker who talks like a metronome, picked up his phone and earned his salary in an hour of emails and calls. Sometimes, heroes wear suits and drink bad coffee in beige rooms while they stop disasters. He cleared it. The money landed. I sat in my small kitchen and reminded myself to breathe. I hired a moving company to start a new kind of mercy. They packed Caitlin's and Jeremy's belongings and stored them at Denver Moving and Storage. I paid 30 days rent in advance and left a note, released to Caitlin with ID only. Do not charge me after day 30.
The manager tapped the paper with a finger and nodded. We see situations, he said. This one's cleaner than most. Jeremy called from a blocked number and told me everything was my fault. I told him the one sentence I planned to say from the beginning. Do not contact me again. If we're in the same room at a family event, talk about the weather like men who learned something the hard way. Caitlin and I found a new rhythm made of short texts about practical things and silent space where the begging used to be. Sometimes she looked at me like an apology was trying to form but didn't know the words. Once, she found them. I let fear make me cruel, she said. I see that now. I'm learning, I answered. It was true. It didn't poke. I took a single therapy session because a man can sand a table with the grain or against it. The counselor used terms like enabling, enmeshment, financial boundaries, language that felt like a suit tailored for someone else but fit well enough to wear once. He said, you punished yourself for not protecting people from consequences. Then you punish them by protecting them from consequences. I nodded. Sometimes truth is just obvious things said out loud. I wrote letters I didn't send. One to Ellen telling her I think I finally kept the promise she asked of me. One to Caitlin, not about money, but about maps and love. Maps don't tell you where to go. They show you where you are. I made my bank accounts boring. No overdrafts, no automatic help that's really a monthly bleed. I set up a small fund at the Denver Public Schools Foundation. They send me emails labeled Proof of Good. Second graders stepping off buses on museum days. A physics teacher's note about calculators making a quiz feel like a quiz and not a punishment. I file them right behind the legal papers. Evidence has always been my love language. The police never showed up again. The neighbors asked questions gently. I told Mrs. Patterson I moved to someplace smaller that fits my knees and mornings better. She brought me a pie and said, "Good for you." People who own rose bushes understand pruning. After a while, I drove by the house on Maple Street. The new owners had hung a different color on the door and planted lilies where Ellen once had marigolds. A young couple was arguing about where to put a couch and laughing like they would tell this story someday. Good. Houses are supposed to hold arguments and dinners and ridiculous conversations about couches. Our memories didn't evaporate. They just moved into a form that didn't require me to fund anyone's dreams but my own. A month later, Caitlin sent a photo from the Children's Science Museum. Her kids under a dinosaur, both of them pointing up with mouths open in pure wonder. The caption said, "Saturday was perfect. Thank you." I typed back one word, always, and then put the phone down like a weight you stop carrying when you remember you can. I keep the new keys to my small place on a ring that doesn't clatter. They sit light in my pocket. Every time I lock my door, I feel that same quiet satisfaction you get when a joint you set with care cures perfectly. Something in me got rebuilt. It's not as pretty as some people prefer, but it holds. People want a moral at the end because we like our lives to rhyme. Take this. Love is not a blank check. Kindness isn't weakness. Boundaries are instructions for how to love you correctly. If you teach people you'll tolerate anything, they'll hand you everything you said you didn't want. If you teach them you'll stand where you say you'll stand, they'll learn where to meet you. And if they don't, that's information. Build with information, not hope. If this story found you at the right time, tap like, subscribe, and tell me where you're listening from. Drop one boundary you learned to set too late. And if you're in the messy middle, here's your permission slip. You're allowed to close the door. You can always open it later. Or not. Thank you for listening.